It's my daughter and my mother. I'm introducing her all way.
Make sure you're not standing in front of that display because you're only seeing about half of your body. So if you go this side where the lectern is, perfect. And for Lori,
Yes.
make sure you don't walk in front of there. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of cool looking. They'll see that part of your body. I mean, it's kind of cool for people watching it, but it's kind of disconcerting when they're going, okay.
So, today I have the pleasure of introducing Lori Boyd. If anybody went to the Springbrook Ladies Day, she also was a speaker there. She is from someplace in Tennessee. Murfreesboro.
There's like 1,000 R's in it. Yeah, Murfreesboro.
Okay, Tennessee, and she attends the East Main Church of Christ. She and her husband Sam were married in 1998 and have 3 children, Evie, Kate, and Briggs. She's a registered nurse, a high school teacher at Middle Tennessee Christian School, where she teaches honors anatomy and forensics. She recently graduated from Heritage Christian University in Florence, Alabama, with a Master of Arts in Christian Scripture. Ooh, that's interesting. Lori has been a writer for Think, Tennessee Home, and Farm, and Christian Woman magazines. She has written 4 books, and I want to tell you, I highly recommend each of her books. I absolutely love them. I just got the new one, Hope Island, but she's written 4. There's Trailblazers, Walking to the Promised Land, Hope Island, and Praying Through It All. They're all outstanding and very encouraging, and all are made available through Pride Publications. She loves public speaking and teaching Bible classes, and presents regularly at workshops and ladies' events. She is part of the Ministry League team, a board member of the World Bible School, and is passionate about participating in mission work at home and abroad. She was born in Germany, and I feel very insignificant right now, Lori. Wow. She was born in Germany and grew up in the Air Force. She attended Abilene Christian University in Texas, graduated from Abilene Intercollegiate School of Nursing in 1996. She moved to Nashville in June of 1997 and has called Middle Tennessee home ever since. Some of her favorite things include spending time with her family, writing, reading, traveling, drinking lots of coffee, and above everything else, she loves the Lord and His church and the joy that comes with being a Christian. Lori.
Thank you. Good morning. It is always wonderful to be back in Washington. This is my 4th time back to Faith Builders, and I am not exaggerating when I tell you it is one of my very favorite workshops. It is, it just blesses me very much every time, and I look forward to it. I love the people up here. I love the beauty of this state. And anyway, so thank you for allowing me to be with you and for coming to class. I'm so excited about what we're going to be talking about for the next 3 days. So I hope that you come back. We're going to be talking about our vision. And we're going to be talking about our vision as it kind of compares to our physical vision. And so I'll explain that a little bit more as we go, but I want to tell you a story first. A few weeks ago, I was in Nashville, and my parents live in Nashville. We live just south of Nashville in Murfreesboro. But I had gone up to see my parents, and I was taking my dad to his eye appointment. He had a doctor's appointment, and it was a follow-up with his eye doctor. He has had some vision issues over the years. A few years ago, he had a double corneal transplant. And so we were going back, and I was driving him to the eye doctor to just have a checkup, check his pressures in his eye and see how he was doing. Well, my dad is an eye doctor. Now, I don't know if any of you, we joke about this as a nurse, like sometimes when you're a nurse, the very worst patients are the nurses. The nurses can sometimes be the worst patients. They can sometimes be the best. Sometimes as a teacher, when you're presenting in front of other teachers, it's a little intimidating. So Dad was going back as an ophthalmologist to the eye doctor. And so I said, okay, Dad, now just just, listen to what he says and follow the instructions. And anyway, he went into his appointment and he came out and I said, well, how did it go? And he said, well, I have 20/20 vision. And I said, well, that's fantastic. And he said, yes, DEFPOTEC. And I said, wait a minute. Wait, that sounds like the Snellen chart. And he said, yes, that is the 20/20 vision line on the Snellen chart, which he has memorized. And no. Time advancing. Hold on.
Blank one.
Yes, it's not doing anything.
Point it the other way. Point.
Try
The computer's over there. Back on it.
Well, you're never going to see the Snellen chart. Never. Okay, turn it off. You're in good hands. It's okay. It's okay. It was working. We know it works because she just did it. So anyway, Dad said DEFPOTEC, and that is the 20/20 line of the Snellen chart. And I said, Dad, that's not fair. That's cheating to have the Snellen eye chart memorized. And he said, I can't help it. I just know it. I know the whole thing. And he went through the whole thing. He just named the whole entire Snellen chart right here. He said EFPTOZ, blah, 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 all the way down. And he said, no, I promise, I really could read the 20/20 line. But it was so funny that that Dad came out and said, yes, I've just got it memorized. And I know exactly what the 20/20 line is and can say it perfectly. But anyway, I was thinking about that, and I have been thinking a lot over the last few months about our topic for this Faith Builders Conference, being focused, a family focused on God. You know, the Bible talks a lot about our eyes, talks a lot about sight. The Bible talks a lot about vision. Talks a lot about vision. If you think, just sitting here right now, just think for a second in the Gospels. Think about Acts. Think about some different books. Think about the miracles of the Bible for a moment. And now specifically think about the times that people had their vision restored, that they had their physical vision restored. We see it over and over again. We had the man that was born blind near Siloam. We had the two men that were blind near Jericho. We have the man in Bethsaida who was blind, and others that had their physical vision restored. And even when we look at those stories about physical vision, we even see that there's some symbolism there with enlightenment, with having your eyes opened to a spiritual truth. And so there's that aspect of eyes and vision and eyesight that we see in Scripture, but we also see just a whole lot of that involves eyesight and vision. Think about the story of Elisha and his servant. Remember with the army of Syria, and when the servant thinks that they're just about to be completely demolished, and Elisha says, he prays and says, God, open his eyes so he can see. And remember, the servant opens his eyes and sees the armies of the Lord all up above the valley looking down. And you have that story, and there are so many others. You've got the Psalm 119, where David talks about, open my eyes so I can see the wondrous things in your law. There are references when Jesus was talking to the Pharisees about opening their eyes, about being blind versus having sight, and talking about that in a metaphorical way. We have Paul, who was given the task of bringing the light to the Gentiles. He talks about that when he's talking about his conversion in Acts chapter 26. So we see this theme over and over again, referring to eyes and vision and eyesight. And then I was thinking specifically about this verse. the next slide. There it is. This verse, Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2, that talks about fixing our eyes upon Jesus. And thinking about that phrase, and this phrase, fix our eyes, some versions say looking unto Jesus. This is from a Greek word, apharao, which means not just look at, it means to look away from everything else. It means to focus on, set your sights on Jesus, nothing else. And so when I was thinking about that, about this conference, about focusing, such an important topic. If you just think for a second about what tries to compete for our attention, what tries to compete for our focus. So many different things in our lives, so many things try to pull our eyes away and have us to focus on other things, anything but Jesus, anything but the spiritual. And so reminding ourselves the importance of looking away from everything else and looking at Jesus is very relevant, and it's very important for us today. So I want to ask the question, what does it mean to focus? What does it mean to focus on something? That's the next slide. I have a couple of definitions up here for you to think about. The first one is focusing as much as it means something being the center of your attention, the center of your attention, the center of your interest, the center of your activity, the center of all your efforts, what it is that you're concentrating on. That is the idea there in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2. Center your attention, your efforts, your activities on Jesus. But then there's this other idea of focusing, which is more of kind of this physical idea of focusing when you actually adjust a lens, and we can be thinking about the lens of our eye, or we could be thinking about like the lens of a camera, where we are moving it around and adjusting it in order to produce a clear of something. So you've done that before, I'm sure, when you have had to adjust a camera, when you've had to move the lens like we had to do in the olden days, you know, to actually, like you just tap the screen focuses, but trying to do something in order to create a more clear image. So my question for you this morning is, have you ever thought about how the structure and function of your actual eye, your physical eye, how it relates to your spiritual vision, or what you can learn about your spiritual vision by thinking about the way your eye is made? Oh, it's so fascinating. You did not know that today you are going to get a little anatomy. You're going to learn a little bit of eyes, and I'm so excited because about the time that we were coming up with our lesson titles, guess what I was teaching in anatomy? The eye. I was in the middle of the special senses unit, and it was perfect. And I said, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to teach all of these ladies a little bit about their eyes. So next slide is going to be kind of just a quick overview of what we're going to do. I'm going to tell you a little bit about eye anatomy here in just a second. We're going to talk about our lens. We'll do these very briefly, talk about the function of your lens. And then I want to talk about two very, very important aspects that have to do with focus. And we're going to relate them to our spiritual life. They're two very, very important things. And so we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about how those two things help you to have a healthier spiritual lens. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm super excited about it. So let's jump into the next slide and let me teach you a little bit about your eye. Anatomy. Here we go. Now, some of you can go on to the next slide. I've got a great little picture, and some of you may know all of this stuff about your eye already. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Here we go. Oh, it's beautiful. Y'all, the eye actually ends up being one of my students' favorite units of the year. They don't realize how fascinating the eye is. We actually do a cow eye dissection. Oh, y'all would love it. We do a cow eye dissection, and you would think, what all can you see in a cow eye? Oh, you can see all kinds of things. All kinds of things come out of that eye. And so, anyway, quick thing really quick. We've got the white of your eye. That's the sclera, the white. We just call it the whites of the eye. But the whites of the eye, where you've got the white coming around, is continuous with what comes in front front of your pupil and your iris. The color part of your eye and the little pupil in the middle is covered with a clear coating called the cornea. And it's all part of the white of the eye. It's just clear in that section. It's transparent. And so then you've got the pupil, which that little black spot in the middle of your eye is actually a hole. You can actually, when the doctor looks in your eye, will come up very close and he or she will have a light that they'll shine into the pupil and they can see the back of your eye. So the pupil is actually open. The iris is the color part of your eye, and it's going to actually allow that pupil, the muscles behind it are going to allow the pupil to become dilated and more open or constricted and a little bit smaller. And then we have this right here, the lens. We're going to come back to that in a second. In the back of the eye, you've got layers in the eye, but the innermost layer is the retina. And the retina is super important because that's where your little light cells are, your photoreceptor cells. They are what are interpreting what you're seeing. The light comes back there and they are going to tell you, or they're going to create an image, but it's going to have to go to the brain through the optic nerve so your brain can figure out what you're looking at. So we'll talk more about the optic disc and the macula later. I'll keep you on the edge of your seat about what those two things are. I know you can't wait. But let's go to the next slide and let's talk about the lens. That's where I want us to really focus our attention. So the next slide is going to tell you a little bit about your lens. Your lens is so important. It's so important. It is what actually focuses and transmits light to the back of your eye, to the retina, which is what's going to actually allow you to see clearly. Now, what's interesting, it might be hard for you to see where you're sitting, but I took this picture from an eye company somewhere. I don't even know where. This is just a great picture they had of a nice little transparent lens here on your left. And look at this poor little lens over here that's a little bit cloudy. It is a lens that probably has a cataract. It has some cloudiness to it, and that's going to affect how well you are able to see. Because when that starts to get cloudy, when you get a cloudy lens, the light can't come through very focused like. It's going to be scattered, and it's going to make it hard to see a clear image. It's going to scatter the light all into the back of your eye, like this is showing here, and that's going to make your image blurry. All right. Transparent. It has to be transparent. That just means light has to be able to pass through it without any obstruction, without any scattering. It has to be able to pass through it. And then in order for something to be clear, the lens has to be transparent. Clear is how sharp of an image is going to result from the transparency of the lens. Okay, that's as much as you're going to get in anatomy today. So let's head to the next slide. These are the terms I want us to focus on this morning. We're thinking about the lens of our eye. But we need to shift here. And I want you to think about a spiritual lens. And I want you to think about it with these two terms, transparency and clarity. Transparency and clarity. So transparency being the physical property of a material that allows light to pass through it. Just think of it, the ability of light to go through something, okay? Then we've got clarity, the quality of the image that is being perceived after light has passed through. All right, so very simply, how sharp and how well-defined an image is. All right, so I want you to think of that. Transparency, how easily light can pass through something. Clarity, how sharp and how well-defined the image is that you see. So I'm comparing it here to a window. This is a nice transparent window, and you can see clearly on the other side the beauty of the outdoors there. But come down here, and you get a cloudy window. You can still see through it. The light is still passing through the window, but look, it's foggy. It's difficult to see, and now the image on the other side is blurry. It is not clear. It is not sharp. It is not defined. All right, so let's hold on to those two things, and now we're going to break that down. We're going to slow down for a second, and we're going to look at what does it mean in your spiritual life to be transparent and to be clear. All right, so let's kind of talk about that. Let's go to the next slide. We can skip ahead to the next one, and I have a couple of ways for us to think about transparency. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Transparency is the idea of being open and honest and clear It's not trying to hide anything. It's being completely open and honest. So there are two words that I want us to think about in order to really grasp that. The first word is authentic. And the second word is vulnerable. Now again, we're shifting. We're going to kind of walk away from the physical for a second, and we're going to look at us spiritually. What does it mean to be transparent? And what does it mean to be vulnerable? Two very, very important concepts. Authenticity. Listen to this definition. The quality of being genuine and real, not a copy or imitation. It involves being true to your values, to your beliefs, to your personality, and acting in accordance with that. Genuine is not pretending to be someone else. It's being who you are. That's genuine. To be authentic also means that you are honest with yourself, but you're also honest with other people. You're honest with yourself, you're honest with other people. Here's another way to look at it. When you are authentic, your thoughts and your actions line up. They align with what you believe and what you value. Let me say that again. What you value and what you believe will line up with the way you act, the things you do, the way you behave, the way you speak. That's being authentic. That is being authentic. Authenticity to richer relationships. You know why? Because you're being honest. Have you ever tried to have a relationship with someone who is not honest with you? It's difficult, isn't it? Those relationships will not stand, or they're difficult. They're just hard. I saw this note. Actually, I just added this to my notes yesterday because I just saw this note as I was looking through, scrolling through Facebook, I think it was. Authenticity doesn't guarantee that everyone will like you. It guarantees that you will like you. What? This is who I am. This is who I am. You might not like it, but I like it because it lines up with what I believe. It lines up with who I am. That is authenticity. Authenticity builds trust. When you know that someone is being honest with you, it's a relationship of trust. When you are authentic, you know what you're going to be able to discover about yourself? What you're really good at, what your talents really are. When you are being honest with yourself, when you are being authentic, you inspire others to do the same. They say, look at Lori. She does whatever she stands up for what she believes in. She is who she says she is. Makes me want to be who I think that I am or who I should be. And so those are some important things about being authentic. So keep this in mind. You are not pretending to be someone else. Your values and beliefs line up with the way you act, with your thoughts and your actions. It is going to be an experience when you are authentic, that you are honest, that you practice honesty all the time with yourself, but also with other people. All right, so let's shift here and talk about the other aspect of transparency, which is vulnerability. To be vulnerable. This is the willingness to be open with other people, to let other people see who you really are. To be authentic is for you. That's kind of your thing. That's I am going to line up what I believe with who I am. But then on the other part of that, to be vulnerable means I'm going to let other people see that. I'm going to express that to other people. I'm going to share that with other people. So in vulnerability, you let yourself be known by others. You allow them to get to know you, all the good, all the bad, and all the ugly. You're just going to be open about it. You're going to share it. So here's some things about vulnerability that you need to remember. It is acknowledging and revealing your weaknesses. Y'all, it's not having this front. It's not putting up this front that I've got it together. I've got it all together and I do it all right all the time. Oh my word. No, nobody does. Nobody does. That is such a fallacy. That is such a myth that we are taught to buy into. That's made worse by other things, which we will talk about in another class. But it is difficult. It is difficult to acknowledge your weaknesses because society makes us think you shouldn't have them. When you're vulnerable, you confess sin, but not just to God. You confess sin to each other. We bear each other's burdens. We have to know what each other is carrying. And so, very important in vulnerability that we do what 1 John chapter 1 verse 9 says, and that is to confess our sins to God. But then we do what James 5 verse 16 says, and we confess our faults to each other. That's being vulnerable. And then finally, under vulnerability, it is a willingness to share your feelings and emotions even when you think I might be embarrassed or I might be hurt. Why do we want to be this way? Why is that important in this idea of transparency? Y'all, because vulnerability allows you to connect to people deeply. It teaches you resilience. We talk about vulnerability sometimes like it's a bad thing. Oh, vulnerable, that means you're up for attack. And it can mean that. It can mean you're in a position where you might get attacked. But sometimes we need to flip that around in our mind and think about vulnerability as a good thing, as a way that we are going to build strength within ourselves. It is going to be something that teaches us to be tough. I remember one time somebody hurt my feelings at church, and one of my elders came up and said, Lori, you're going to have to get some thick skin. You need thick skin. You're going to have to let some things just kind of roll off and just have some grace, be forgiving, and just go on. You have to know that vulnerability is going to make you more courageous. It's going to lead to growth. It's going to help you break down barriers. When it comes to transparency, Jesus talked about this in a couple of different places. Actually, he talked about it in numerous places, but I want you to think about a couple of places. Oh, this is perfect right here. A couple of different places. In Luke chapter 18, verses 9 through 14, do you remember this? We're not going to turn there because we just don't have time, but this is the story that Jesus told about the Pharisee and the tax collector when they were praying. Remember that? And this is just a great example of authenticity and vulnerability. The Pharisee saying, look at me and all the great things that I do. And then the tax collector saying, have mercy on me. I am a sinner. And Jesus said, which one of these two walked away more justified? He tells that story. He also, in Matthew chapter 6, verses 1 through 8, talks about serving and he talks about praying. And he talks about not being the kind of person that calls attention to yourself when you're serving and saying, everybody look at me and watch me go over here and serve this person. Or don't be somebody who prays out loud for everyone to hear. Jesus said, go into your closet and pray there. Examples of being transparent, being authentic. Just be who you say you are. And be who you say you are behind the door of your house as much as you are out in front of everybody. When I think about authenticity in Scripture, I think about people like Paul. I think about Daniel. I think about Joseph. People who lived according to what they believed. And they didn't care what people thought. Paul went around in his ministry saying, look at what I was. Look at what I used to do. I am the chief of sinners. wonderful examples of authenticity, vulnerability. Y'all, if you read through the Psalms, you have a beautiful picture of David's vulnerability. As he poured out his soul when he struggled with sin, when he didn't understand why things were happening. Oh, Job, that's a great one for authenticity or for vulnerability, talking about his questions. Why am I suffering like this? Job was authentic. Moses was authentic. I can't lead these people. Help me. Hannah, she was vulnerable, praying out in front, letting tears fall down her face, praying over something that she agonized for. We have to learn how to become comfortable with being transparent, being open and honest about who we are. And why is that the case? Am I working? Do you want me to use this? Try it again. Why do we need to be transparent? Why is authenticity important? Well, because of this. 42%, this is a statistic for you that came out from the recent Barna study. 42% of people who have no faith said the reason why they doubt Christianity is because of hypocrisy, because they are setters, not doers, that are in that faith. Down here at the bottom, you may not be able to see it, 49% of people that say they profess to have no faith, they would describe Christianity just in general as being hypocritical. That is why we need to be transparent. That's why we have to learn to be authentic and vulnerable. So we don't go out into the world and make it look like you can't be part of this group because you're not good enough. We can't do that. We have to change and let the world see us as what we are. Struggling sinners who are just as much in need of grace as the next person down the street. But if we walk around acting like you can't be part of this group unless you have it all together, no wonder people aren't going to want to be a part of it. They're going to think, I can't. I struggle too much with sin. We have to be careful of that. We have to let our young people see that you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to always have all the answers. You need to know where to get them. You need to know what your source is. But you're not always going to be perfect. You're never going to be perfect. Always going to struggle, but we struggle faithfully. We need to teach that. 26% and 22%. These were 26% of people from other faiths also indicated that hypocrisy was the reason that they doubted Christianity. And then 22% were people who consider themselves to be Christians and actually would say that this is one of the reasons they have doubt about the Christian faith is because of hypocrisy. I just thought those statistics were staggering. You know, when you think about 42%, that is almost half of 10 people would say, no, I'm not a Christian because it's hypocritical. All right, so let's quickly go to the next thing. Clarity is the next part of transparency I want us to think about. We have transparency, we have clarity as the other part. And I want you to think about clarity in these two ways. Clarity, I want you to divide up into two aspects. And I want us to think about discernment, and I want us to think about direction. Clarity, I want us to think about discernment and direction. Clarity is the ability to see things clearly. It's to understand your goals, your values, your purpose, and the steps that you need to take to achieve those things. It's about having a clear vision about what you want to achieve in life and how you're going to get there. That's clarity. Spiritually, when we think about spiritual clarity, we're thinking about understanding the truths that are revealed in God's word and then how to apply them, how to live them. That's spiritual clarity. So let's look at discernment. I've got some things for you to think about with these words. Discernment being the ability to perceive and understand and judge things accurately. It's to differentiate between something that's true and something that's false, or something that is right and something that is wrong. But what I like about that, I'm going to come back to that really quick, understanding God's will and making choices that align with God's purpose. That is discernment. I love this when you talk about differentiating between what is right and what is wrong. Charles Spurgeon once said, discernment is not a matter of simply telling the difference between what is right and what is wrong. Rather, it's telling the difference between what is right and what is almost right. Isn't that true? Like being able to discern what is the right thing to do. It goes beyond just seeing or hearing something. It involves grasping the true nature or meaning or significance of something, of a situation, an idea, or a person. It's applied when we make choices. We use discernment when we make choices, when we are looking at different options. Should I do this or should I do this? When we are creating or developing our opinions about something, where do I stand on that? Do I stand here? Do I stand there? What is my position? Discernment is carefully considering something and then using very sound judgment in order to have the very best outcome. It's based on more than a feeling. If you're going to be discerning, it's not just, well, how do I feel today? Am I going to go this way or am I going to go this way? When we're talking about spiritual clarity, discernment is not just how do I feel today? How do I feel about you? How do I feel about what you believe? How do I feel about what I believe? Discernment is not, it's based on something stronger than that, than a feeling. In fact, I wish I had written these down. These are just some verses that use the word discernment in their translation. Let me just go through them really quick, just so you can kind of get these in your mind of how this word is used. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God. All right, think about discern. Just think about that context really quick. Then listen to this. The natural person, this is 1 Corinthians 2:14, the natural person does not accept the things of the Spirit of God, for they are folly to him, and he is not able to understand them because they are spiritually discerned. Philippians 1:9, and it is my prayer that your love may abound more and more with knowledge and all discernment, so that you may approve what is excellent and so be pure and blameless for the day of Christ. And one more, Hebrews 5:14, but solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish between good and evil. These words, these are different words actually in the Greek language that are translated in these contexts to discern.
What was the first verse?
The first one was Romans chapter 12, verse 2.
Okay, thank you.
Romans 12:2, yes. And that word that is translated to discern means to test. The next one in 1 Corinthians 2:14 means to investigate, to scrutinize, or to determine. The one in Philippians 1:9 means to judge or to perceive something. And the one in Hebrews chapter 5, verse 14 means to dispute or to make a judgment. Do y'all see those words? Test, investigate, scrutinize, examine, judge something. Those are things that aren't just like, well, this is how I feel about that. On something much deeper than that. It is getting into something and studying it in order to be able to determine, according to what our source of truth is, what is right and what is wrong. Now, let me say, that comes with prayer. That comes with prayer for understanding. That comes with prayer for God to guide you into all things. That comes with humility. That it will, that you are honestly looking for truth. That you're honestly looking for the right thing to do. And that comes from a humble heart that we're trying to understand. We know where to go. Now, God, help me understand it. Discernment involves following God's guidance. It involves standing on truth. It's stability when we have instability all around us. It is recognizing and avoiding sin. It's seeking godly counsel when you don't understand something. Let's flip over really quick to direction. Direction, knowing who you are and where you're going. Recognizing your identity in Christ. Understanding your purpose. Moving forward, not just standing still, remaining stagnant. Developing a closer relationship with God. Part of clarity is knowing where you're going and being certain about it. Knowing the direction that you are following is important, and it's going to involve looking inside yourself. It's going to involve asking yourself questions like, what do I believe? If someone asked you, why are you a Christian? What would your answer be? Could you tell them your number one priority? What would your answer be? Do you know where you're going? Do you know what you believe in? Using the Bible as your map. Knowing where to go for truth. This is all going to help form your direction. When you put discernment together with direction, now you're talking about spiritual clarity. Important in creating a healthy spiritual lens. Jesus talked about discernment and clarity. I was reading this the other day that Jesus said, follow me on 12 different occasions. It's mentioned 21 times in scriptures that Jesus said, follow me, or talked about coming after him. Follow behind me, do what I do. That is mentioned on 12 different occasions that Jesus said that. What is involved in following Jesus? I'll tell you what it is to sum it all up. It's life-changing. It's changing your whole life. It's dropping what is important to you and taking on what was important to Christ. It is leaving behind anything that is self-righteous. And it is following Jesus in humility. It is abandoning whatever old values or old beliefs or old morals you had and conforming to what Jesus said. It involves daily commitment. It involves humility. It involves giving up stuff. But if you follow Jesus, if you follow his words, if you use discernment on what Jesus said, and you're following in his footsteps, you're going in the right direction, and you're going to be discerning rightly. Jesus said, follow me. Discernment. Think about characters in the Bible like Solomon and Esther, Abigail, Josiah, that discerned right from wrong and went to the right source in order to be able to do it. Direction. Think about people who had direction. I think about Ruth. She knew where she was going. Ruth knew where she was going. Elisha, he wasn't going to leave Elijah for anything. So many times he said, no, I'm coming with you. Elijah would say, you stay here. And he would say, nope, I'm coming with you. I am not staying here without you. Elisha, John the Baptist, he knew from the very beginning he was born what his whole direction was, what his purpose was, what he was there for. Behold the Lamb of God. He must increase and I must decrease. John knew his direction. Oh man, the Reconstruction leaders after the exile, Zerubbabel, Ezra, Nehemiah. Oh, those were men who knew direction. They knew where they were going. They knew what they wanted to do. They knew their purpose, and they followed it. Now, let me give you a little bit of a better statistic than our last ones. 63%. Okay, this is hope. This is hopeful here. 63% in the 2022 Barna study. 63% of U.S. teens and young adults said that, oh no, this is everyone that was surveyed, said that they have made a personal commitment to Jesus. They didn't define personal commitment. I don't know. I just know that means that they have chosen Jesus. That is still important in their life today. Okay, so that's a group of 10 people over 6, between 6.5, 6.3 people will say, Jesus is important to me. I've made a commitment to him, and that still holds true today. That's good. No, that's good. That's a good number. All right, how about this? 52% to 77%. Y'all, this is teenagers surveyed in the United States, according to the 2021 Barna study, indicated that they are either somewhat motivated, that's 52%, to very motivated, 77% of teenagers that were surveyed said they are very motivated to learn more about Jesus. That is almost 8 in 10 teenagers. They want to know. They want to know more about Jesus. Somewhat, even we have some that are even somewhat, they say motivated, over 50%. That's good. We can take that. We'll take that. Now, those are good numbers. And what's really interesting, too, about this, I don't have a slide for this, I don't think, but of this 77% that said they're very motivated to learn more about Jesus, when they were surveyed, the next question was, what to you is the most reliable source in order to learn more about Jesus? Of that 77%, y'all, 95% said the Bible. That's good. That's good. Okay. So we've got young people who are very motivated to learn more about Jesus, and 77% of them, all of them say, the Bible seems to be the reliable source. What are we going to do with that? What are we going to do with that percentage? Here's what we're going to do. First of all, when it comes to the hypocrisy part, that statistic, the way that we are going to cure that, the antidote for hypocrisy, is genuineness. It's sincerity. It is honesty. That is how we turn around hypocrisy. For this number, for these young people, the way we address this is that we are people that are discerning, and we have direction. And then we are vulnerable. We share that. We talk about it. Transparency, so important, and clarity, so important in our healthy spiritual lens. And it looks to me like we know the cure for the hypocrisy part. We just need to do it. And this part, this encouraging part, that there are people out there that want to know more about Jesus. We need to be ourselves good students of the Bible, and learning to discern, and learning to apply, and then truly knowing our purpose and our direction. Because when people look at you and see, hey, look, she knows where she's going. She knows what she's doing. She's got a plan. She knows what her goal is. Then we can talk about that. We can share that with people. All right, we're going to, I think, wrap this up. What does this mean? What does all this mean for a healthy spiritual lens? What is the goal? When we think about transparency and we think about clarity and the other words that we've talked about underneath those two categories, being authentic, being vulnerable, being discerning, having direction, what is the goal of all of that? Here are two parts of the goal. Number one, we learn humility. We learn what it means to be humble. When we are true to who we say we are, when we allow people to see us for exactly our weaknesses, our vulnerable, our struggles, we allow them to see us vulnerable. To be humble is to truly see who you are and who God is. It's to understand why you so desperately need Jesus. I put some references up here on the screen. I'll say them out just in case you can't see them, but 1 Peter 5 and 6, James 4, verse 6, and Micah 6, verse 8. These are scriptures about humility and about what it means to be humble, about how God will exalt those who are humble. He will raise up those who are humble. The goal of a healthy spiritual lens is to be transformed. It is to be changed. Transparency and clarity will lead to transformation. To see who you are and to see who God is to understand that you need to grow and that you need help in this process of sanctification. No, we are trying to be more like Jesus. Do you know that's no small thing? Do you know we need help with that? I mean, that's not something that we just take lightly. It's something that takes work. It takes change. It's painful. It's a struggle to be made into something different. It's not something that just you wake up one day and just decide, hey, today is the day. It's a process. It's an ongoing process, and it's a process that involves being transparent, and it's a process that involves clarity, knowing who you are and who you want to become. I put some scriptures here, Romans 12:2, we've already read this morning, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18, and Galatians 2:20. These are all scriptures that have to do about changing, about being transformed, about becoming something different. So the goal of a healthy spiritual lens is to be humble. It is to be transformed. And ultimately, we want to be transparent and we want to be clear. We want to have authenticity and vulnerability. And we want to have discernment and direction because ultimately we want to reflect the divine nature of God. We want to look more like God. We want His nature. And in this life, we're not ever going to get it perfect. I feel like I always have to qualify it by saying that. We try, but one day, that blessed day, that one day, we will be like Him. We will be like Christ in the fullness of that. And here, while we're here, we live a life of being transparent and clear so that we can become more like Him. And then I'm going to leave this thought with you here. Remember this. You are the lens that is going to be the way that others see Christ. Remember my definition of lens that I put on the screen earlier? It is to transmit and focus light. The reason it's so important for you to have a healthy spiritual lens is because you are the way that the light is coming into the world. You, as a child of God, as a follower of Christ, you are transmitting and focusing that light in the world. You have to have a healthy spiritual lens. You have to be looking at who you are. You have to be looking at, does what I say line up with what I believe? You have to be vulnerable. You have to let the world know that you don't have to be perfect to be a follower of Christ. You have to know that in order to be a healthy lens through which others see Christ, you need to have godly discernment. You need to be able to make good judgment on what is right and what is wrong, and what is right and what is almost right. Easy. You have to be able to make good judgments. You have to be making choices, taking stands on what is true. You have to have direction. You can't just be flailing around, not knowing where I'm going, what is most important to me. You have to know where you're headed. You have to know who you are. You have to be firm in your identity. You have to know your purpose. You have to know why you're here. And why? Number one, because you need to be humble. You need to be humble. Transparency and vulnerability and authenticity will make you humble. You're really looking at yourself. Number two, you have to be clear. You have to be clear. And you have to know, or you have to be transformed. Sorry, I'm getting way off. You have to be transformed. You have to be willing to be changed. You also have to remember that you are trying to reflect God in this world, but all of that is because you are the lens. You are the lens in this world. And so I want you to ask yourself this question. What kind of lens are you? Clear, and a healthy lens is transparent. Where are you in that? If we were to look at you as an actual lens, would you be clear or would you be cloudy? How well are you transmitting and focusing the light of Jesus? What image are you creating in the world? These are important things for us to think about. Now listen, you've got to come back tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to talk about conditions of the eye and ways to correct things that go wrong with our spiritual vision. I know you're excited about learning more about the physical eye, so I will tell you a little bit about some physical conditions of the eye. We're going to look at 4 of them, but we're not going to spend much time on it. We're going to very quickly move into how those spiritual conditions teach us about maybe what we are struggling with spiritually. So we're going to look at spiritual vision conditions. But we're not just going to leave you there. We're going to talk about how to correct it. And we're going to talk about what is important in creating a healthy spiritual vision. So you need to be back tomorrow. And then on our last day, we're going to talk about blind spots. Blind spots. You know, you have a natural blind spot in your eye, a very particular place in your eye that cannot see. Did you know that? It's a wonder we're not walking around tripping on things all the time. There's a way your brain fixes that. But we're going to talk about blind spots, and we're going to talk about what we need to do in order to create the most sharp, the most clear, perfect, not perfect, almost perfect spiritual vision. We're going to talk about that on Saturday, and I hope that you'll be back and join us on those days. Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you for being here this evening.
She is, yeah, she's with the kiddos somewhere.
That's the one, right?
At least at the moment I do, I may not.
Y'all in school?
Yeah, she's got.
Right now, I just picked up on it and all that, but I consistently express business
Great to be back.
Recording the broadcast.
Okay.
So we are. You should be here pretty soon.
Great. You haven't, you just saw it, just that you can.
Oh, it's not. That's good, right?
It's not like this is what we're sitting.
Right.
So let me tell you this.
Okay.
The way it works is you need to give me the line.
Okay.
So I have to start the screen.
Okay.
Then
Then.
you.
Okay.
I need to grab your PowerPoint. This will be your zapper.
Okay.
So this is on.
Got
When
one
you see
just
this,
like
yours,
it.
okay.
Just
That's
like it.
forward.
Forward, backwards. Hey, that's simple enough. I can even do that.
I need to get it connected.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, and the other thing is, you want to stand over here. Because we're not actually copying this
You can't see
picture.
that. Okay.
And if you go in front of it, you just.
That may be better for the online audience. Oh. Well, I don't want to impede the integrity of these people. How's everything going?
of record, registrations this year.
Okay, gotcha.
Drop it out on the floor.
2 years ago.
Yes.
It's his first time to workshop. It was at, it was at PLU.
Yeah, okay. And what was it called?